From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Growing better soybeans, how research in Louisiana is looking into how two ingredients interact and what that could mean for boosting yields. How long does it take to improve soil health?
In 1 year, we can improve biological function of the soil.
We take a long look as we kick off a week of helping you flip your soil as the Texas Panhandle gets out of the frying pan and into the wet weather.
We're going to see obviously a pretty sizable amount of reduction in acres.
As cotton planting season continues right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. By now, many farmers in the South should be wrapping up cotton planting, but several states still have a long way to go. At last report, 89% of the cotton crop was in the ground. Usually it's at 94%. Focusing on the largest cotton producing state, Texas, it's much the same story. 84% of the crop is planted compared to the 5-year average of 93%. As Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan reports, the state has been on a roller coaster when it comes to weather.
Last summer, sentiments across the Texas Panhandle were sinking.
This is going to leave a scar, going to leave a mark that guys are going to remember forever.
We don't have an acre of dry land left. It's all been felled out.
Nearly a year later, the story is dramatically different.
Pretty drastically, pretty quickly too.
Cody Besant is the CEO of Plains Cotton Growers, representing cotton farmers across 42 counties in the Texas High Plains.
As you get through the Panhandle area and all the way down through the western portion of the High Plains, their plant deadline is May 31st. So we've obviously surpassed that.
But as you move south, that deadline was later and more of the cotton crop was able to get planted this year. But it's definitely a different story depending on where you travel in the Panhandle.
Really what that kind of means from a logistics standpoint, from acres, we're going to see obviously a pretty sizable amount of reduction in acres from basically Plainview north. At least from a cotton perspective.
He says this area historically plants 3.5 to 3.7 million acres.
We're probably going to be about 3.2 to 3.5 million acres planted.
Not only was it rainfall impacting planting this year, but also what farmers have seen since.
Lots of hail. There has been a lot with these storms that have come through. There's been a lot of hail with them.
We caught up with Todd Straley while he was in Amsterdam this week promoting U.S. cotton. But last year when we talked to him, that's when the drought was drowning out farmers' hopes.
When you get up north of Plainview, where I am, up into the northern Panhandle, Swisher County, and then even north of that, up north of I-40, I think I had about 20% of my acres in that area that got planted, and I don't think I have an acre of that standing today.
You know, from a number standpoint, I'd say maybe a couple 100,000.
Straley says Plainview and South, the planting and production picture is much better for cotton.
We had roughly 60% of our intended acres what actually got planted. Of that 60%, roughly 20% of that has been lost to hail.
But still better than last year's nightmare.
Honestly, the stuff that got planted and is still standing today looks awesome. A lot of my dry land has 3 and 4 foot profile underneath it, better moisture than we have seen in a long time.
But just look at USDA's latest ratings for subsoil moisture in the Crop Progress Report. 30% of Texas's subsoil moisture is considered short to very short. That compares to 72% on April 2nd. That's when USDA's first Crop Progress Report of the year was released. For crop conditions, but Mother Nature turned up the heat this week, with what meteorologists are calling the Omega Block dominating the U.S. and bringing a heat wave in Texas.
We needed that to really kind of get cotton going and off to the races.
It was a hot weekend in the South, especially southern Texas. Will we see a cool down this week? And what about more chances for rain in the Midwest? Meteorologist Andrew Whitmire joins us with a look ahead.
And unfortunately for Texas, this heat dome is going to be unrelentless here as we go throughout this course of this week. We're going to be looking at triple-digit heat values that are going to just kind of remain parked down across parts of the deep southern plains there. Check out San Antonio, Brownsville, into near that triple-digit heat mark with temperatures dancing around 110 to 115. And we're going to see this stretching all the way from New Orleans all the way over to Phoenix as we go throughout not only this Monday, but unfortunately as we go throughout this week. Here's a look at our temperature outlook here as we go throughout the end of June and the 1st of July. Notice how that heat dome again remains parked down across parts of the deep south. And as we look at precipitation, where it's hot, it's going to remain dry in areas around the Corn Belt that need some much needed moisture, but we'll try to squeeze out a few drops across the far northern plains and across parts of the Midwest. Let's take a look at our crop photo of the day. Plainville, Montana here. Check out this spectacular shelf cloud. Roger Hill capturing this beauty again in Montana. The clouds, along with the rolling hills, just seem to go on forever in this picture. Thanks for sharing. I'll more on your AgDay forecast in just a few.
India's Prime Minister visiting the U.S. last week as part of a state visit. The two sides resolving 6 trade disputes at the World Trade Organization. Now, they include U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum and India's retaliatory duties. India agreeing to remove retaliatory tariffs on chickpeas, lentils, almonds, walnuts, apples, and boric acid. Meanwhile, the U.S. will maintain its steel and aluminum tariffs, but both nations agreed to terminate 4 other WTO disputes. 2 of those were filed by India and 2 by the U.S. Now, the U.S. Trade Representative's office saying, quote, as a result of our work, U.S. agricultural producers and manufacturers will now enjoy renewed access to a critical global market, and we will strengthen our trade relationship with one of our closest partners, end quote. U.S. Apple says it's thrilled with the announcement, saying that when India retaliated by bringing total tariffs on U.S. apples to 70%, sales fell to nearly zero, costing U.S. growers $500 million in sales. African swine fever continuing to spread overseas, now reported in Bosnia. The World Organization for Animal Health saying the disease was reported in a pig on a farm in the northeast part of the country. It was in the country's autonomous Serb Republic. Since 2021, ASF has been reported in 47 countries. It's believed to have impacted more than 942,000 pigs and more than 27,000 wild boars, animal losses totaling more than 1.4 million. OSHA should strengthen rules to protect meat and poultry workers from infectious diseases. Now, that's according to a report from the Government Accountability Office, which was looking into the industry post-COVID-19. It noted during the pandemic there was a sharp increase in reports of illness among meat and poultry workers. In response, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration increased plant inspections. But OSHA's safety standards didn't include COVID-related hazards, such as workers being in close proximity. As a result, the agency had few enforcement options. Now, it's reported over 86,000 meatpacking workers contracted coronavirus. 423 died before October 2021, with infection risks in some plants higher than in the general population.
Flip Your Soil on AgDay is brought to you by Economics, farming's go-to information resource. Get your questions answered at nutrient-economics.com.
Now, all this week, we're looking at how you can flip your soil to improve soil health and increase yield. Have you ever wondered how long it takes to see improvements in soil health? Well, Mitch Hora with Continuum Ag says while the big gains take several years, you can move the meter in just the first year and see improved biological activity. This requires farmers to get serious about reducing tillage and adding cover crops.
What I mean by in 1 year we can improve soil health, I mean that in 1 year we can improve the biological function of the soil. We can improve our microbial communities and our soil activity. We can improve the liquid carbon, the active carbon that's going into the soil. We measure it as water extractable organic carbon, and we do that with the Haney soil health test.
If farmers stay on that course, they'll start to see bigger measurables over time, like improvements in the water holding capacity of soils and improving nutrient cycling.
Then usually in about year 3, year 4, we're really starting to see improvements in water infiltration and more stable aggregate stability. The actual crumbliness of the soil, the aggregates, the soil structure takes a couple years. Usually we start seeing fungal systems in our soil, fungal hyphae. We start seeing those in year 4, year 5, and start seeing nitrogen cycling being more effective, usually by year 2, sometimes in year 1. We start seeing potassium and phosphorus cycling improve, usually more in the year 4, year 5. It takes a little bit longer.
And once farmers see organic nutrient cycling, that is when they can cut back on their synthetic inputs like fertilizer. Now, he says increasing organic matter in the soil takes more time. It's a topic we'll look at later this week. Grain markets take a breath on lower exports and improving chances for rain. We'll dig into that next in analysis. And later, scientists in Louisiana are working to flip the soil in soybeans by focusing on micronutrients in the country. Grain market sliding at the end of the week on word of some rains in the Corn Belt. Is the market focused on anything else besides the weather? Michelle Rook is here with some analysis in Markets Now.
Grains ended the week lower. Mike Zuzula with Global Commodity Analytics joining us. And corn and soybean futures, well, we were basically taking weather premium out the end of the week, Mike, with ideas that what rain makes grain.
Yeah, in the European model, I think the trade is all in on because there was such a big distinction between a ridge still left in the GFS model through the weekend and the European model saying that ridge breaks down. And that's, I think, what Friday's trade was pretty much all about, as you say, Michelle, is did we really break the ridge? Are we going to have rain number 2, rain number 3 to get us off this precipice of being in another 2012-like corn situation east of the Mississippi River, which I do think we're really on the edge of that given what producer clients are telling me right now.
So we start off a big week here, Mike, and a month and a quarter. We've got these big reports, and you're going into a big weather time period. So it's going to get pretty volatile, isn't it?
It's going to get worse and worse before it gets better. And I think this could be, like if it is like 2012 or similar to 2012, it'll probably go all the way into August. I was doing some research just a few minutes ago before going in on air, and between late June and late July, November beans rallied about $3. And we took corn crop conditions from late June from 63% good to excellent down to 26% good to excellent by June 23rd of 2012. If we see something like that or similar to that, Michelle, I'd say buckle up.
But one rain is not going to correct this big drought problem that we have, is it, Mike?
No, and it's going to make it tougher for the marketer because, as you say, I talked to a very good client that's in between Chicago and Lafayette, Indiana, pretty much the heart of the drought right now, the high pressure ridge. And he had 0.4 of an inch of rain since May 6th. As you say, one rain is not going to change anything on yield. It can keep the crop going for that next rain, but this heat is really starting to impact us. But that's going to get tougher because we know how the funds are. We know how they trade the spreads and trade the gaps and trade the wedges. It's going to be harder. So play the longer game would be my general advice.
All right, and put your seatbelt on. Thanks so much for joining us, Mike Zuzula with Global Commodity Analytics. That's Markets Now. We'll have more Ag Day coming up.
Registration is open for the 2023 Pro Farmer Crop Tour, August 21st through the 24th. Attend one of our nightly meetings or join online as we gain insight on the 2023 growing season. Visit profarmercroptour.com/register to select the stop nearest you.
And let's start off this Monday, this last Monday in June, and we're going to take a look at the root zone map here. We showed you this a little bit earlier on last week, but we are going to be watching for a few scattered showers up across the far northern plains, and even across parts of the Midwest and Great Lakes states, which really need the moisture. Those darker reds again means that top layer of soil is pretty dry, and we need the raindrops sooner rather than later across much of the Corn Belt and soybean regions here. And as we take a look at that drought map that was released Thursday, took into account the water from this past Tuesday. And again, we're looking at still those extreme to exceptional drought conditions across parts of Nebraska as well as parts of Kansas. Meanwhile, we're watching the drought further expand across parts of the Midwest, Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, as well as up into Michigan. And again, we need this moisture sooner rather than later, and it does look like we are going to be watching a few scattered showers and thunderstorms that will try to bring with it some scattered relief across parts of the Dakotas as well as parts of the Midwest and Great Lakes states again. But I think the bulk of the water potential here is going to kind of hug itself up along the New England coastline here as we go throughout the start of this week. And here's why. Again, we've got that heat dome down across the south with that big upper level ridge. Meanwhile, we've got a few troughs that are trying to work their way up along the upper Great Lakes and across the northeast. And I think this trough here is going to keep kind of those scattered showers around parts of the northeast as we go throughout much of this week. Meanwhile, we're going to be watching this ridge further, trying to expand its way a little bit further towards the north. And that, unfortunately, is going to limit rain chances for much of the Great Lakes, Midwestern states. I think our best chance of water will likely happen earlier on in this week, as well as parts of the Dakotas heading on into later on this week. Check out our temperatures for this afternoon. Again, all eyes on the deep south there, especially Texas, the far southern plains. That's where we're going to be watching for those triple-digit heat indices across the U.S. That's a look across the country. Let's take a look here at AgDay Select Cities. San Antonio, sunny, high 105 degrees, just yuck and gross out there. That's going to linger throughout much of this week. A little bit cooler upstate New York and Rochester, scattered showers and thunderstorms, high 75. And Crosby, North Dakota, 80 degrees, partly cloudy.
A helping hand can be worth a lot of money, or at least what someone is willing to pay for it at auction. Machinery Pete is here next. And later, we'll continue our look at soil health with scientists in Louisiana studying the impact of micronutrients on soybeans in the country. Producers know it can be hard to find good help on the farm, so any equipment that can help make the work easier is a plus. Machinery Pete focuses on one piece of equipment that may be able to do just that.
Well, I want to talk about a piece of equipment coming up for sale this week, Wednesday, June 28th. It's for sale on auctiontime.com, and it's from our friends at Delta Power Equipment up in Ontario, a fantastic 15-location Case IH New Holland dealer. They also carry many other great lines of farm equipment. Now, this piece of equipment, very unusual. It's a 2017 Triolite TrioTrack 22400 self-propelled TMR feed mixer. Quite a rig. This thing has 4,751 hours on it, four-wheel drive, 175 horse. It's got 3 cameras. You can position different points around the unit for flexibility. And it also has a valid U.S. EPA label. So for folks in the U.S. thinking they can utilize this rig, it's good to go. And also the folks at Delta Power Equipment, they're positioned where they are in southern Ontario, very familiar with facilitating equipment flowing back and forth across the border. So again, this self-propelled TMR feed mixer sells Wednesday, June 28th. Check out the listing, folks. Tons of information on it. 55 pictures, 3 videos. And I was fortunate enough to speak with Dan Dolmage on the sales side with Delta Power Equipment about this unit selling Wednesday. And it was really interesting. You can find that interview I did with Dan out on our Machinery Pete social media and YouTube channel. But these rigs in this environment we have now where it's so hard to find and keep farm help, these self-propelled units, amazing what they can do. So again, unique buying opportunity, cost of new, of course, very high. So here you go, a 6-year-old unit selling Wednesday, June 28th, 2017, Triolite TrioTrack 22400. Check it out.
All right, thanks, Pete. Now we're focused on soil health this week. And up next, some new research in Louisiana looking at soil fertility in soybeans in the country.
In the Country on Ag Day is brought to you by Pivot Bio. What if you had the nitrogen you need already on seed? Pivot Bio is the first company to apply nitrogen on seed. The nitrogen you need, now on seed, from Pivot Bio. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
Soil fertility issues can be linked to many causes, including soil types, nutrient deficiencies, even drainage. As LSU Ag Center correspondent Craig Gautreaux reports, scientists are looking at the role a micronutrient and a herbicide may play in soybean production.
Earlier this year, soybeans were planted in this field as part of a study examining how manganese and the herbicide glyphosate interact in soybean production. For several years, soybeans have shown stunning and discoloration, which are made worse when glyphosate is sprayed.
We tend to believe that manganese deficiency is a big issue there because we know that when we see these manganese deficiency symptoms and then spray glyphosate, the thing gets worse.
The interaction between manganese and the herbicide is not fully understood, and the research being conducted on the Louisiana Delta farm will hopefully provide some insight.
Glyphosate can tie up the manganese, and it can actually cause the manganese deficiency. So we'll be able to see the same treatments with and without glyphosate to see if that is actually causing a problem here.
Weed pressure on the farm is very high, so using a herbicide-tolerant soybean system is a necessity.
We really need to be able to utilize glyphosate technology if we can, because it's so cost-effective and broad spectrum.
The study can provide some useful information for farmers in Louisiana that grow soybeans, which is Louisiana's largest crop at just under 1.2 million acres. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gautreaux reporting.
All right, thanks, Craig. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.